Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world obsessed with linear thinking, a world that says this causes that and that causes this. We say the fire causes the heat, the seed causes the tree, the thought causes the action. But this is merely a convenient story, a way for the mind to simplify the infinite interrelationships that are actually going on. Cause and effect, in the way we usually conceive it, is a fiction. It's not how reality truly unfolds. It's a story we impose on the world to make it feel manageable. But the world doesn't work in a straight line. It works in a dance, a pulsation, a vibration, a pattern of interwoven movements that all arise together. You see, the moment you try to isolate a cause, you're already in trouble. Let's say a tree drops a seed and that seed grows into another tree. You say the first tree caused the second. But what about the soil, the rain, the sunlight, the air, the earth itself? The seed doesn't grow in a vacuum. It grows in a universe. So which of these things was the cause? The truth is, nothing causes anything, because everything causes everything. No one thing can take credit for the birth of a flower, the flow of a river, or the unfolding of your life. You are not the product of a few clear causes. You are the intersection of galaxies, bloodlines, ideas, weather patterns, language, music, emotion, and mystery. Try to see the world not as a chain, but as a web. In a chain, one link pulls the next, but in a web, everything is connected in all directions. Pluck one thread and the whole thing moves. What we call a cause is just one angle of looking at that web. What we call an effect is another. But in truth, there is no before and after, no action and reaction, just a constant becoming. When a bell rings, does the striker cause the sound? Or do the shape of the bell, the atmosphere, the listener's ear, and 1,000 years of acoustics all come together in that moment? The ringing is not caused, it happens. And it happens as part of a total event. This is not just wordplay. It's freedom, because once you stop believing in a rigid chain of cause and effect, you stop blaming yourself for everything. You stop imagining that one wrong step ruined your future. You stop chasing some hidden first cause, trying to fix it so life will finally go right. Instead, you realize life is not a problem to be solved. It's a mystery to be lived. Everything arises with everything else. You didn't start your life, and you don't cause your thoughts. They come like waves on the sea, and you are the sea. Even when you move your hand, it's not just your will making that happen. It's bones, muscles, nerves, ancient evolution, and the intention of the whole universe expressing itself in that gesture. You are not separate from the world. You are the world. So let go of the need to explain everything with causes. Let go of the obsession to pin down why things happen, and instead pay attention. Watch how things move together. Listen to the symphony. Notice how the flower opens because the sun rises. The sun rises because the earth spins, and the earth spins because it does. Trying to find a first cause is like trying to find the first wave in the ocean. They all move together. They all belong. And so do you. The concept of cause and effect is deeply embedded in how we explain the world, how we think, and how we try to control outcomes in our lives. We are taught to believe that one thing leads to another in a neat and linear sequence. If you work hard, you succeed. If you say something, someone reacts. If you push a door, it opens. This way of thinking gives us a sense of order, a sense of control. It reassures us that if we just identify the right cause, we can predict or even change the effect. But when you begin to look closely, this framework starts to dissolve. The idea that things happen in a one-directional line, that A causes B, is not actually how reality functions. It is a mental model, a story that we tell ourselves, and like all stories, it simplifies a much more intricate truth. And what we call cause and effect are not isolated events, but rather labels we put on parts of a seamless process. Consider a simple example, rain falling from the sky. We might say the clouds caused the rain, but why were the clouds there? You trace it back to evaporation, sunlight, wind patterns, atmospheric pressure, even the pull of the moon on the oceans. And behind all that is the rotation of the Earth, the gravitational influence of other celestial bodies, the heat from the sun, a star that's been burning for billions of years. So where exactly was the cause? When did the effect begin? The closer you look, the more you see that there is no clear line where cause ends and effect begins. Everything is entangled, and the same principle applies to your own life. You might say that your success was caused by your hard work, but what allowed you to work hard? Was it your genetics, your upbringing, your environment, the opportunities that randomly appeared, the people who helped you along the way, your ability to focus, to persist, to believe? And where did those come from? You can trace this backward infinitely. Nothing stands alone. Every so-called cause is held up by countless other causes, and each of those by countless more. Eventually it becomes obvious that the entire framework is arbitrary. You could slice reality in any number of ways and call one moment a cause and the next an effect, but it's only your perspective, not a truth about how things really work. Reality unfolds as a whole, like a song. No one note causes the next. They all belong to the same melody, the same breath of music. In the same way, what we think of as separate events, this happened and that, are actually part of one unbroken motion, one great happening. Your thoughts, your movements, your choices, they are not solitary causes with their own effects. They are inseparable from everything else. When you speak a word, it is not just your decision that makes it happen. It is the tongue, the air, the muscles in your jaw, the language you were taught, the people who taught it, the birth of the culture that shaped it. Everything is connected. The idea of cause and effect is a useful tool in certain contexts, especially in science and technology, where isolating variables helps us create models and machines. But that doesn't mean it's the fundamental nature of reality. It is a lens, a filter, a convention. And when that convention is taken too seriously, it limits our understanding. It leads us to see life in fragments, in separations, in chains of blame and credit, success and failure. It tempts us to look for root causes of our problems, or to imagine that changing a single input will permanently fix an outcome. But life is not a machine. It is a living process, a flowing whole. Once you see that cause and effect is not a law but a perspective, you begin to relax your grip on it. You no longer obsess over the past, trying to identify what went wrong. You no longer worry about controlling every variable to guarantee a certain future. You begin to participate in the world rather than trying to manipulate it. You begin to see events not as isolated dominoes in a row, but as ripples in a vast ocean of movement. An ocean that moves all at once. You realize that the rain doesn't fall because the clouds made it happen. The rain falls because the whole sky and earth and air and sun and ocean are dancing together. And rain is just one note in that dance. When you observe nature closely, it becomes clear that things do not happen in isolation. There is no single moment in time or one isolated object that acts as a definitive beginning for any event. Instead, everything unfolds together as part of an inseparable whole. This principle, that everything arises together, challenges our usual way of thinking, where we imagine that events are linked in a clear, linear chain of causes and effects. But life doesn't function like a row of dominoes falling one after another. It moves more like waves in the ocean, or like the shifting patterns of the wind, interconnected, simultaneous, and without fixed boundaries. Take the growth of a flower as an example. We might say the seed caused the flower to grow, but what about the soil that nourished it, the sunlight that warmed it, the rain that fed it, the insects that pollinated it, the wind that carried the seed to its resting place? All of these elements came together at once. None of them separately caused the flower. The seed alone could do nothing without the rest of the system. In fact, the seed is not even the beginning. It came from another flower, and that flower from another, and so on. The entire process is circular, continuous, without a first moment. The flower is not a result of something else. It is part of a total pattern. arising with the world, not from it. This insight becomes even more profound when applied to the human experience. You are not a separate object dropped into the universe, causing things to happen around you. You are a process within the universe, not separate from it, but one expression of its total movement. You breathe air that comes from trees, eat food that comes from the soil, think thoughts shaped by language, and feel emotions influenced by culture, memory, hormones, and interactions. Your life is not a sequence of independent choices and reactions. It is a spontaneous unfolding, an event happening with everything else. Even your thoughts don't arise independently. They seem to come from you, but in reality they emerge as part of the vast system of your mind and body, which itself is part of nature. Your thoughts are shaped by the language you were taught, the voices of your parents, the books you've read, the sounds you've heard, the emotions you've felt, and the countless subtle influences you aren't even aware of. So when a thought appears, it's not because you caused it in isolation. It arises with your entire being, and with everything else happening around and within you. The idea that everything arises together brings a sense of intimacy with existence. You start to feel that you belong to this world, that you are not here to dominate it, fix it, or even fully understand it. You are here as part of its rhythm, like a wave is part of the ocean. When a wave rises, it doesn't do so alone. It is moved by the wind, the moon's pull, the depth of the water, the contour of the seabed. All these elements work in harmony, creating the wave together. The wave does not cause itself. It is caused with everything else. This view dissolves the artificial boundary between self and other. It invites you to stop seeing yourself as a separate agent moving through a world of objects. Instead, you begin to see yourself as the world happening in a particular form, one expression of a great and continuous unfolding. Your joys, your fears, your thoughts, your actions. They are not isolated. They are part of the dance. And because everything arises together, there is no need to fixate on control. Control is based on the illusion that you are separate and can manipulate the world from the outside. But if you are the world, there is no outside. There is only participation, relationship, mutual influence. Just as the sun rises with the morning mist and the bird sings with the rising light, your life happens with the entire universe, never apart from it. So when you begin to feel anxious or pressured to make the right decisions to control your future, you can step back and remember, the future is not the result of a single choice or action. It is the result of everything, the entire field of life moving together. In that recognition, you may find something very different from certainty or control. You may find trust. A deep trust that life unfolds not because of you or despite you, but with you, as you do it in Endless, and beautiful co-arising. When we think of how things happen in the world, we often imagine a long chain, one thing leading to another, a series of events strung together like links. This image of a chain, though comforting in its simplicity, is not how reality truly works. Reality is far more intricate, more alive, and more dynamic than any linear model can capture. A better metaphor is a web, an interconnected field where every point is connected to every other point. In this web, everything influences everything else. There is no first and no last. There is no independent beginning, and nothing happens in isolation. A chain implies direction and order. One link pulls the next and the next in a straight and predictable line. But the world doesn't move in straight lines. The world is circular, spiraling, rhythmic. It moves like the ripples on a pond, like the branches of a tree, like the veins in your body, expanding, bending, and overlapping in infinite ways. In a chain, if you break one link, the connection is lost. But in a web, everything is resilient. Tug on one thread and the whole structure trembles. It responds as a whole, not in parts. This is how life operates. Think of how ecosystems work. A single bee pollinates a flower. The flower becomes fruit. The fruit feeds an animal. The animal moves the seeds through the forest. The tree grows. It shades the earth. The soil becomes rich. The rain is held. and the cycle continues. Now ask, where is the cause? Is it the bee, the flower, the tree? You can't say, you can't point to one and isolate it as the source of the rest. They all move together. They are not links in a chain. They are threads in a web. The same applies to human life. A person isn't formed by one event or one decision. We are made by the total field of our experience. Our personalities, beliefs, and behaviors are shaped by family, culture, language, trauma, joy, love, and time. Our emotions are influenced by the weather, our diet, our memories, the music we hear, and even the energy of the people around us. So when we try to identify one cause for why we are the way we are, we're not seeing the full picture. We're picking one thread and pretending it's the whole web. This misunderstanding can lead to confusion and suffering. We may blame ourselves for past decisions, thinking that one mistake caused all our misfortunes, or we may glorify a single success, believing it was the one thing that made everything else possible. But life is never that simple. Our lives are not single threads, but tapestries, woven from countless experiences and conditions. Every moment of your life has been co-created by everything else. The people you've met, the places you've been, the words you've heard, and even the dreams you've had. They all contribute. Nothing is isolated. Even when you interact with others, this web is active. Say you speak a kind word to someone. That word may lift their spirit. They may carry that feeling forward, affecting how they treat their child or a stranger or themselves. That one word ripples outward in ways you can't measure. But the kindness didn't come from nowhere. It was shaped by your own past, by the kindness you once received, or the pain that taught you empathy. Your action is not a single cause. It is a continuation of everything that has ever happened. It is the web responding through you. When we understand this, something beautiful happens. We stop trying to control everything as if we are the sole driver of our lives. We stop trying to analyze every situation into parts. What caused this? Who's to blame? What went wrong? Instead, we begin to feel the living texture of existence. We begin to see the world not as a machine, but as a living organism. Complex, interdependent, and mysterious. We begin to participate in the web, rather than trying to sit outside of it and pull the strings. This shift in perception brings peace. You no longer need to figure everything out. You don't have to trace every emotion, every outcome, to some linear source. Instead, you can simply witness how everything dances together. You begin to trust the connections, not always knowing where they lead, but sensing their wholeness. You begin to act, not as a separate agent, but as one thread moving with the others. The web holds you, and through it life unfolds, not because of you, and not in spite of you, but with you, as you, in endless connection. Most people believe they are separate entities moving through a world of objects. They think of themselves as individual minds housed in individual bodies, making decisions, taking actions, and shaping the world around them. This belief fuels the illusion that the self is a singular cause, an independent operator that initiates events, drives behavior, and controls outcomes. But if we look deeper, with clear and honest attention, we begin to see that this image of the self is not only incomplete, it is fundamentally false. The self is not an isolated cause. It is a happening, a process, an ever-changing phenomenon that emerges from the whole of life. What you call you is not separate from the world. You are the world in a particular form. Let's start with the simple fact that you did not bring yourself into existence. You didn't choose your parents, your body, your language, your culture, or even your first thoughts. You were born into a vast network of conditions already in motion. Your body grew without your permission, your thoughts began without your instruction, and your emotions arrived without your design. And yet we go on believing that this I inside us is somehow standing apart, directing everything like a puppeteer. But there is no puppeteer, there is only the puppet. And the puppet is dancing in rhythm with everything else. Even when you move your hand, you may believe you're the sole cause of that movement, But your hand doesn't move by willpower alone. It moves through a complex orchestration of muscles, tendons, electrical signals, and unconscious coordination, all of which operate far beyond your conscious control. You don't instruct your neurons to fire. You don't manually contract each muscle fiber. It all just happens. Your will is part of the movement, yes, but it is not separate from it. It is one layer of a much deeper process, one ripple in the vast sea of conditions. The idea of being an isolated self causes a great deal of anxiety. It makes people feel like they must take full responsibility for every outcome, that they must always be in control, and that failure is always personal. But once we begin to see that our actions arise from countless influences, genetic, environmental, emotional, social, and cosmic, we begin to soften. We begin to understand that our choices are not created in a vacuum. They emerge from a rich field of interdependence. You didn't invent your fears or your dreams. They came through you, shaped by your history, your surroundings, your biology, and your relationships. This isn't to say we are passive victims of circumstance. Rather, it reveals that we are co-creators with everything else. We don't push life forward from behind a control panel. We flow with it, respond to it, and shape it as it shapes us. Just like a tree grows in response to light, soil, water, and wind, we grow in response to our entire environment. The tree doesn't cause its own branches to stretch toward the sun. That growth happens with the sun, not because of it. Likewise, your actions happen with the world, not apart from it. When this is deeply realized, something beautiful occurs: humility without helplessness. You begin to participate more gracefully in the unfolding of your life. You no longer believe you must conquer the world or wrestle outcomes into submission. You begin to cooperate with life, understanding that everything you are doing, even this very moment of reading and breathing, is a collaboration. The air you breathe becomes your breath. The food you eat becomes your body. The thoughts you think were seeded by voices you've heard, books you've read, and ideas that have rippled across the collective consciousness for centuries. You begin to see that your very sense of I, the voice in your head that claims ownership over everything, is itself conditioned. It speaks with the accent of your culture. It argues with the phrases of your parents. It worries in the language of your past. That voice is not your enemy, but it is not your master either. It is just another event, another movement in the great unfolding, and you are not merely the one listening to it. You are the listening itself. You are the awareness in which that voice appears, the stillness behind all the noise. In this understanding, the idea of the self as an isolated cause falls away, and what replaces it is not nothingness, but spaciousness, a sense of being vast, open, and deeply connected. You are not doing life, you are life doing itself. The rivers, the wind, the trees, the animals, the stars, they are not other. They are part of the same process that breathes you, moves you, and brings your life into being each moment. The obsession with control is one of the most subtle forms of human suffering. So much of our anxiety, guilt, and inner turmoil arises from the belief that we must be in control of everything, that we must fix the past, manage the future, and explain why things happen in order to avoid mistakes and pain. This belief is rooted in the idea that events follow a straight line, that one thing causes another, and if we can identify the cause, we can change the effect. But when we begin to see that life does not unfold in such a linear, mechanical way, a strange and liberating realization arises. We are not responsible for everything in the way we imagine. We are part of a far larger movement, and letting go of the need to control or understand every aspect of it brings a profound sense of peace. Letting go is not the same as giving up. It is not passive resignation. It is a shift in how we relate to life. When you stop seeing yourself as the master of your fate, when you recognize that you are part of a whole that you cannot fully grasp, you stop blaming yourself for every failure. You stop carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You stop believing that one wrong step could destroy everything. Instead, you begin to trust that life is intelligent in ways the mind cannot measure. You begin to recognize the wisdom in not knowing. People often believe that they must explain everything, why they feel what they feel, why something happened to them, why they made a certain choice. And when there's no clear answer, they panic. They search for reasons, looking to the past for a single cause that can account for their current pain or confusion. But life is not a puzzle with a single missing piece. It's a living process with infinite causes, infinite movements, and infinite Trying to isolate one cause is like trying to find the single wave that made the ocean. It's impossible and unnecessary. This need to explain is often a form of control. If we can name the cause, we believe we can prevent the suffering next time. But life doesn't work that way. Sometimes things fall apart for no clear reason. Sometimes we change without warning. Sometimes beauty arises from chaos and clarity comes from confusion. When you let go of the compulsion to explain, you begin to feel the freedom of simply allowing things to be as they are, without analysis, without justification. This is where healing begins, not in solving the riddle of why something happened, but in accepting that it happened and recognizing that you are still here, still breathing, still alive in the mystery. Letting go of cause and effect thinking creates space, space to feel, to rest, to breathe, space to heal without needing to understand every step of the journey. Some wounds don't need explanations, they need silence. They need time, they need kindness, and they need the freedom that comes from no longer trying to control the outcome. Letting go also means releasing the stories we tell ourselves about who we are. Stories built on causes. I am this way because that happened to me. I failed because I made the wrong choice. I succeeded because I worked hard. All of these are simplistic views imposed on a complex, living truth. You are not a fixed identity made of past events. You are a moment-to-moment unfolding, a fluid being, not a static thing. And when you drop the stories, even for a moment, you begin to feel the presence of who you really are beneath them. Spacious, open, quiet, and free. This is the peace that comes when you realize you don't need to hold everything together. You don't need to carry every reason. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone, not even to yourself. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to rest in the mystery of being. And in that rest you begin to trust again. Not in a plan, not in a system of causes and effects, but in the deep intelligence of life itself. An intelligence that breathes your body, beats your heart, and moves the stars. The same intelligence that will carry you, guide you, and unfold you in ways your mind could never predict. And so, the moment you stop trying to make sense of everything, you begin to feel what it's like to truly be alive, not as a controller of life, but as a participant in its sacred dance. We are conditioned to seek answers, to look for explanations, to label every experience, every emotion, every twist and turn in our lives with a reason, a source, a cause. This tendency is born from our desire for control, the belief that if we can explain something, we can understand it, and if we understand it, we can manage it. But there is another way of moving through life, a quieter and more honest way, to observe instead of explain, to witness rather than analyze, to look at life not as a riddle to be solved, but as a movement to be watched. This shift begins when we realize that our explanations are often just stories, convenient narratives we use to make sense of something far more complex than our language can handle. We say, this happened because of that, or I feel this way because of that person, but we rarely pause to ask whether these explanations are true. Most of the time they are not. They are simplifications, interpretations shaped by memory, emotion, bias, and culture. They are maps, not the territory, and living only by the map prevents us from truly seeing what is here. When we replace explanation with observation, something opens. We begin to experience life directly, as it unfolds, without interference from mental commentary. We watch our thoughts come and go like clouds in the sky without needing to chase them or fix them. We feel emotions rise and pass like waves on the shore without needing to justify or suppress them. We notice patterns, sensations, impulses, and we meet them with curiosity, not judgment. This is awareness, and awareness is not concerned with blame or credit. It simply sees. This seeing is not intellectual. It is not about collecting more facts or constructing more clever theories. It is about dropping into presence, into the raw experience of now. When you are present, you don't need to figure everything out. You don't need to draw conclusions. You can sit quietly with a question and let it remain unanswered. You can listen deeply to what is happening, both within and around you, and trust that what needs to be known will reveal itself in its own time. The beauty of this approach is that it requires no effort to understand, only the willingness to look. Life speaks not in explanations, but in patterns. The way trees bend with the wind, the way animals respond to seasons, the way the body tightens in fear or softens in love. These are expressions of truth that words cannot capture. When you stop explaining and start observing, you begin to tune into this deeper language. You start to notice the intelligence that underlies all things, not as a theory, but as a felt sense. In practical terms, this means allowing things to unfold without needing to label them. When confusion arises, you don't rush to name it. You sit with it. When joy appears, you don't immediately ask why. You feel it. When sadness comes, you don't bury it under analysis. You allow it to speak. This kind of presence is not passive. It is deeply active in its stillness. It takes courage to observe without explaining, because it means letting go of control. It means surrendering to the mystery. But in that surrender, you discover a kind of clarity that explanations can never provide. You begin to understand not through thinking, but through being. You feel your way through life, guided not by mental conclusions, but by a deepening sensitivity. And this sensitivity brings wisdom, a wisdom that doesn't come from books or theories, but from paying attention. Attention to the way your breath moves when you're anxious. Attention to the silence between words. Attention to the feeling in the body when you make a decision. This is where truth lives, not in causes and effects, but in the immediacy of experience. Eventually you realize that life doesn't need your commentary. It doesn't require your explanations. It just asks that you show up, that you stay present, that you see what is without needing it to be different. And in that seeing, you are no longer separate from life. You are part of its rhythm, its unfolding, its dance. You move with it, not above it. You stop trying to define the steps, and instead, you let the music guide you. And the more you observe in this way, the more deeply you come to trust life, not because you've figured it out, but because you've seen enough to know that it is whole, it is intelligent, and it is always speaking, not in explanations, but in the quiet language of what is.